want you to think back to the first time you ever remember being truly afraid. What was it? Does it stick with you today? This is the sort of thing that we talk about on the House of Asher. Won't you join us? Welcome back, everybody. This is your host, Steve Asher. You are listening to House of Asher. This is episode 32, which is, it's crazy. It's got to that point. That's remained pretty solid, and I've been lucky enough to talk people coming in here and talking to me on my little micro show here. It's been a real blessing to meet a lot of interesting people that I've followed throughout my life and just met on the byways and the highways of crossing the country and stuff like that. I am extremely excited today. I'm barely able to sit in my chair. This is beyond cool. This is like the little kid in me is just flipping out, totally hyper. I have a very special guest today, Mr. Bob McGehee, aka the Count of Five. This guy scared the crap out of me and my brothers on his show on Channel 5, and it always stayed a constant. Always stayed a thing of back and forth, like, hey man, do you remember back when we was kids and da-da-da, getting that popcorn, cooking it in the big pot. It was before microwaves and all that, 70s stuff, cooking it up, sitting there, tearing it up, man, eating tacos or whatever in the middle of the night. You got your window open. It's Western Kentucky, so middle of summer. It's super foggy, and it's just awesome. It's such super great memories, the atmosphere of it, and Bob always kept it, funny and spooky, and that was so great. He never went too deadpan with it, pardon the pun, but, and like I said, it's a real honor to have Mr. Bob McGehee on the air. Hey, Bob, how are you doing, bud?
Steve, it's good to be with you today.
Man, like I said, you have no idea. When my brothers, I'm actually excited for my brothers to hear this, because I've been telling them, yeah, man, I'm going to try to get this guy on, and I've been back and forth, and I'm like, I said, I don't want to spook this guy, because I'm a huge fan, and I'm just like having like shades of like play Misty for me or something. So you got to be careful. You don't want to freak people out. You don't want to seem too anxious. But no, man, yeah, I'm super glad that you're here, dude, and it's a real honor to have you on.
Well, it's been a while since I've been on Channel 5. In fact, I guess we started late 70s and finished up early 80s. And it's strange because at that time, Sir Cecil had gone away, Elvira had gone away,
Mm-hmm.
and so many people thought of the Count of Five as nothing more than the son of Sir Cecil. And Russ McGowan was an acquaintance from Channel 4, but we had a lot of fun doing it. It started out in the afternoon hosting a double feature, Channel 5 Saturday afternoons, and then they moved that and got a monster movie package, and then it became Movies and Madness, and I was the Count.
That was what was really trippy to me, because like I said, you also did stuff on Channel 5 beyond the Count, correct?
Oh yeah, that was basically a freebie for Channel 5. I produced the morning show Mondays through Fridays. I came in as the associate producer and did a Kids World segment. And when Tom Irvin was station manager, I did produced editorials for the station manager at the time. So it was varied, and I wouldn't give anything. I spent 9.5 years at Channel 5, and one of the more fun things had to be when Hee Haw came in twice a year to tape Hee Haw. And when the girls were in the hayfield with the big Beauregard, the bloodhound, doing something, they'd come back to the break room and we'd play backgammon.
That's killer. So that's the sort of quirky ways that, like I said, things overlap and people pass each other's past. Because, like I said, obviously this is Western Kentucky, so Hee Haw was big here too. And like I'm pretty sure my dad had met, it was either Roy or Buck Owens. I think they were. I'm pretty sure they had come through here, and I guess they were boogieing, and think they stopped him, and I'm pretty sure he got to meet them and meet the guys and stuff. And I'm sure they're kind of like, okay, it's cool, we'll get out of this ticket, we'll talk to this, this city cop, which my dad was a lot like. You remember like the old Cannonball Runs and Smoking the Bandit?
Oh yeah.
Okay, remember the Jackie Gleason character?
Yeah.
That was
Sheriff.
yes. Honestly enough, that was a lot like my dad. He was kind of a dry sense of humor and just had a lot of that character to him. And it was really funny that like you said, you bump into, you just kind of intersect with different people throughout your life. It's strange. Now I'm trying to remember. Now I think by the time that I was really aware of it, you guys were doing like the later at night episodes and stuff.
It moved around a little. It started out, I think, after the 10 o'clock news, and then it kept getting later and later and later. And finally, a competing station bought the monster movie package before Channel 5 renewed it.
Oh.
So toward the end, I found myself introducing adventure flicks, mystery dramas, a little bit of everything. The spooky pictures weren't there, and I finally went to Bill J. And I said, look, the movie that plays this weekend, I've screened it. It's not going to be a funny show. It's about a kid that's going to die of some disease.
Yikes.
And I think it's time we put, a stake in the heart of the Count of Five and let him go. And so he said, well, yeah, I guess it makes sense. If you don't have scary movies, you don't need a count.
Right. Well, and that's so crazy because I remember when like the Advent, once they were doing like all the Universal stuff and they were able to push all that out, and then you had like a lot of people like Carpenter and guys like that here in Kentucky and stuff that were influenced by like a lot of that stuff and started doing their own movies. That's back in the days which you had like Orca and Jaws and 3D, which I actually think came out on this day. I think it was that, Hills Have Eyes, and what's the Rob Zombie movie? I'm blanking out. Sid Haig. I know this. I'm blanking out.
It's funny you should mention Carpenter.
Yeah.
When my wife and I were students at Western Kentucky, she was actually in a movie that he was doing, and the scene called for her to fall or jump off the stadium at Western, I guess the football stadium.
Wow.
And so, she got to work with him, and of course they just, they had her about to go over, and then they switched to a dummy falling. But, she got to work with him.
See, to me that's amazing. I've talked to guys like Fredo and Ray and some guys like that, and I touch base with a lot of different people. I'm actually talking to the guy from we'd mentioned off the air about Kolchak the Night Stalker. There was a character whose name was Updike, and they called him Uptight, and he was kind of like a foil of Carl Kolchak, and they're always back and forth. And he's still alive. He's actually in West Hollywood, and I'm trying to sweet talk him to see if I can get him on the show and kind of touch base about some of the old days of this and that and all that. But yeah, man, Carpenter was very influential on a lot of levels, just for the fact of he did his own scores and all this and that, and it's kind of like you don't necessarily need a big studio. Obviously guys like Ed Wood and stuff like that did things that were similar, definitely not to the success, at least not until long after his death out there. But it was really cool. And that's kind of a little claim to fame, having a Kentucky guy. But then again, we also have like Charlie Manson, so we have to kind of trade off.
Sure.
But
one of the things that as I think back, and like I said, it's been 30 years, I guess. But anyway, when I think back to when it started, and it went from an afternoon double feature to the scary movies at night, I had made out of a block of wax paraffin the canines that I'd use. And so we'd take the intro to the movie, and occasionally the paraffin teeth would slip out. So you had to do a quick rinse, retake. And when it came time time for the Jerry Lewis Muscular Dystrophy Telethon, after we had come up with this character, the Count of Five, Bill J said, hey, we're going to have a fishbowl over at Hundred Oaks Mall, and we think it'd be great if the Count of Five banned the fishbowl so the kids throw their nickels and whatever at the count to benefit muscular dystrophy. I said, Bill, these paraffin teeth aren't going to work out in public.
Right.
He said, look, talk to your dentist. They can do something for you. And he was talking about Midnight Cowboy, and Dustin Hoffman as Ratso Rizzo had some really scummy teeth made by his dentist for that character. So my dentist says, sure, no problem. He makes me a set of dental quality canines and matched the color of my teeth. So they definitely looked like the real deal. And so it's time for the telethon, and we've got the fishbowl out at Hundred Oaks. And these three little black kids came up, and they're going, hey, Mr. Count, let's see those big old plastic teeth. All I had to do was smile, and poof, like a shot, they were out of there going, oh my God, he's real. Similar event happened at the grocery store one Saturday morning. I'm just there getting milk and bread and whatever, and I noticed this one little kid, again, this little black kid. I don't know if they're up later than kids in general, but the little black kid's tugging on his dad's pant leg, and he's always standing on the other side of his dad from me as I'm shopping. And finally I'm in the checkout line, and I see the little kid and his dad a couple of aisles over. And the guy looks at me, talks to his son a minute, looks at me again, he says, you're the guy that keeps me up every weekend. My son loves you, but he's scared of you.
Yeah.
So I went over and talked to him briefly and said, hey, that's just a fun thing we do. I'm not sure he believed, but the kids still seemed pretty scared.
Well, man, but you swung, right? I mean, and that's the thing that, because sometimes you see people that sell it real hard, or get too deep into the character or into the shock value of it, and I guess it's fine, especially college kids and stuff like that. But that's just like whenever I do stuff like that, which I mean, public stuff like that, you always want to make sure not to go full creep with it, just because, like you said, people that come, like might read my books or whatever, they're usually going to have their kids or their grandkids with them, and and you always want to, make it fun. There's no point in, putting them off like that. But it has to be sort of a dubious honor to know you have that kind of effect on kids. Because I'm not going to lie, when I was small, it scared the crap out of me, man. I mean, it took me a little while to, it was kind of like one of those trial by fires. Hey man, you're going to think you'll be able to watch the whole movie? Because I would always keep a cover close, because if it got too hardcore, I went up under it. But where toward the end, man, I was hanging in there with the brothers, and I kind of won their respect, I think, by doing that. But yeah, man, so did you just decide, like, well, look, I'm going to decide to be a vampire? I mean, did you look at some other character templates, Wolfman or this and that, or you just thought, hey, it
was purely by accident. It just kind of evolved out of the primordial ooze, I guess.
Well, I think everyone has sort of characters that they're closer toward. I mean, like Halloween, obviously, Halloween is like one of my favorite holidays. I mean, I love Christmas and all that for the kids and all that, but I mean, all you gotta do is like look in my little studio here, and it looks like a Halloween shop. And Halloween
was always kind of unique at our house, especially when I was still doing the character, and kids would come by, and some of them knew what to expect, and others were going, hey, we need to stop by here. This is where the Count lives. Going, oh, okay. So we had a few that would come to the door and just be totally freaked out, and others are going, hey, I finally got to meet the Count. So that was fun.
Well, I remember, and I'm trying to think, we had talked about stills and things like that, and my wife, God bless her, she does like really good photography, especially like natural photography, outside photography, and beautiful artwork. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I want something like that, but can we have some smoke and maybe like some dead trees? And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm literally going, "Okay, here's some clips from X-Files. Here's some Count of Five stuff. Here's whatever
Yeah.
different kind of old horror hosts. Like here's Bride of Frankenstein. This is what I'm looking." And she's like, "I can't do that." So I'm sitting here setting up lights and like against a white wall and puff like a smoke machine a little bit in there enough that I can still breathe and do it. Trying to do my own stuff. Like when you did your stills, who did like your still work?
One of our audio men at Channel 5 at the time, Randall Coe, who still has Randall Coe Photography, was just really getting into photography at the time, and so I used him for a couple of different ones. And for the poster we actually did the poster, and I'm going to send you one. But we did that poster for the Muscular Dystrophy Telethon, and we must have done several thousand. But at the time, I decided to use a local sheltered employment, like a not-for-profit agency, to actually package the posters. And so we had these kids would roll them up, and then they would wrap them in butcher paper, just white butcher paper, like you see at the meat shop where they slap the steak onto it and it absorbs the blood. I thought, is anybody going to correct the fact that the Count of Five posters wrapped in butcher paper? I'm not sure anybody got that.
I don't know. I mean, it was a very nice touch, though.
Well, like I said, I'm going to send you one.
Man, like I said, I'm in your debt. If you want to sign that thing, it's great. If you don't want to sign that thing, either way, it's definitely going to go up on my international wall or right here behind me in my little studio where I do my stuff. I remember talking to, as I told you off air, the show is now carried also through WPKY in Princeton, hometown radio station, home of the Tiger tagline. Anyway, and I was talking to my friend Ty Engelbright, who was the general manager there, and he's just a hair younger than me, not much, a couple hairs maybe, and I was saying, well, you kind of knew, like he was more like kind of like Elvira, maybe Cecil Creep a little bit, but I said, no, man, you don't understand. It's sort of like I'm not sure if you watch Doctor Who very much, but there's been a lot of different Doctor Who's, and everyone's like, oh, well, yeah, those are okay, but my doctor was number 10, or my doctor was number 12, or whatever. Those are okay, but this one's the best. And that's what I always tell everybody. I said, yeah, that guy, yeah, he was pretty good. Or, like Penny Dreadful, love her to death. And Dr. Gangrene, I said, you're not bad. You're not bad, but this guy, he was the boss. This is my guy. And it's, seriously, we wouldn't get in an argument, but we're back and forth. Like, no, man, no, look, you don't remember. Let me explain to you. And I'm sure your ears are burning somewhere. Go, man, who's rapping about me like that? But no, man, that's where it was, man. It's just where I'm still at with it, man. And do you ever break out the cape? Do anything? Because I know, like you said, I know you're involved with a whole lot of different stuff. I know you're really into like muscle cars and stuff like that, which we can touch on here in a minute. Just curious if you ever break it out, or is that just one of those things you just leave it in the crib?
Yeah, when we had stopped doing it, maybe a year or two later, and I'm looking in the closet, I could say crypt, but anyway, there's the tuxedo and the cape with the black shiny cape and the red lining. I'm thinking, I'm not sure we're ever going to do this again. Anyway, bottom line was, gave away the tux to some not-profit, may have been Goodwill or ARC, but some agency that they took the tux.
Wow, man, it's crazy. I'm surprised it's not like up in a. I thought you were going to say it was going to be like in a horror museum somewhere.
Yeah, it should have been.
It really should have been. I know that there was a. I'm blanking on the guy's name. Does a whole lot of like the artwork of different horror hosts. I know there's one of you, and I know there's one of Gangrene. I think there's one of Ghastly and some of the some of the older school guys. And when those guys, like, how did they approach you to do that? Was it just like, hey, grew up as a fan, want to do this, or did you find out about it after the fact, or?
Oh, how did I get started as the count of five?
No. I'm sorry. Like, I remember there's an artist, and he used like maybe 4 or 5 colors, and it was like paintings and stuff. And I don't know if you've seen them, but I'm pretty sure it was in like the magazine that had the story about you.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I can't think of his name, but I do remember seeing where they had done some stylized artist renderings of the count.
Right. You know, and I know you're retired now. I know you're kind of kicking back and enjoying the time out in the sun. But do you ever think about? Because I mean, there's a lot of people that come back and did stuff. I know that. I don't know if you're familiar with like Svengoolie and stuff, and then there was Son of Svengoolie, and then eventually Svengoolie became, just Svengoolie. Did you ever think about stepping out, doing like that, either on a local station or doing it on the internet? I mean, a lot of people can do that now. Do a lot of stuff with green screens and stuff. I know it sounds like I'm trying to pull you out of retirement, and I kind of am, because I think it would be good to see you back on the air. But I'm sure it'd be probably a headache too.
Well, at the time it was convenient to do because between other things that they actually paid me to do, it was kind of like, hey, we've got a few minutes. Why don't we get the count in here to introduce the weekend movie? And it just kind of no big deal. Just kind of, hey, let's just do this. Very laid back.
Felt less like work.
Yeah.
Right. Well, let me ask you. Well, go ahead.
In terms of coming back, not sure. That time may have come and gone.
Well, and sometimes was it that you could never go home again? Sometimes it's leave the legacy as it is and just enjoy it for what it was. I was going to ask you too, because we were talking a little bit about muscle cars and stuff like that. When did the love of that start?
Oh, I've been a car nut ever since I can remember. I think we were living in Arizona at the time, and for about my probably 5th or 6th birthday, my parents gave me a little red Ferrari. Looked like, I'm trying to think of what model it would have been. Anyway, a little red Ferrari convertible, and then loved cars ever since, and have had some interesting cars along the way. At one point, when I was still in graduate school at Western, I had acquired a 59 Jaguar XK150S,
Lordy,
which has the 3 carburetors, and I actually rebuilt that engine with it setting in the car. It turned out my landlord at the time had all the tools required, cylinder bore brushes and whatnot. So that was quite a project. And then when the Nissan plant opened in Smyrna, the American president, Marvin Runyon, was looking for someone with broadcast video experience to kind of help create and shape and mold an internal video network for employees on the line to talk about quality, safety, cost savings, those kinds of things. And so at that point, I went to my boss at Channel 5 and said, hey, I've got an offer to do video for a car company. I'm going to have to go. And so we parted on good terms. In fact, we have a reunion of the Channel 5, what they call First Family. Those of us that started when it was still WLAC TV on the 28th of July. So I always look forward to that every year.
Man, that's
but
awesome.
Yeah, getting to work for a car company and still do video, I couldn't have described a job I'd rather be doing. And so after 26 years with Nissan, I retired in 2010. And I still keep my hands in it. I'm involved in the leadership right now of the Middle Tennessee Z Club. And we take a lot of travels into Kentucky, and we have members in Kentucky and Murray and Eddyville and up around Fort Campbell. But, yeah, fun cars.
Well, I was just talking to a friend of mine, Mike Syke, on the last episode of House of Asher, and they have a thing which he's like a big, kind of a car nut, especially like the old like Rat Fink type cars, like real tricked out, and
Oh yeah.
extended bodies and all that stuff, and yeah, that would be cool, man. Like I said, like where do you guys? You said you come up in like Kentucky, and did you mainly do that like Lexington and Louisville in that area, or do you do it like further west, or?
This past weekend, the Keeneland Concours was held, and because the weather looked iffy, I decided not to go. But we get up around Muhlenberg County, Todd County, Christian, Logan, through that area, and basically, the Z Club, we're just looking for some nice, easy, curvy roads that we can drive and end up at some kind of a barbecue or catfish place and share a meal together and just have fun together.
Dig it. Well, man, I was going to tell you, like, through here, I mean, well, we have a thing here in Caldwell County called the Black Patch Festival, and that's because back in this part of Western Kentucky, like back in the day, it's where they grew up a particular type of tobacco, which would go into like cigars and things like that. And they actually, I mean, it was crazy. They actually had like battles over land, land rights and this and that over who could grow this and that. And it was kind of a weird, dark time, but it was still part of the history. And they have a great big street festival, and that might be something. I don't know if you guys are locked in contractually where you go and stuff. I know Danny Beavers, our mayor here. I was talking to him about bringing some stuff into this area, and you were talking about driving in areas, especially that's really scenic. Are you familiar with the Land Between the Lakes area here?
We are. In fact, our friends, the members who live in Eddyville, they are not that far from Land Between the Lakes.
Yeah. See, Eddyville is nowhere. I mean, I'm sorry, Eddyville is like 15 minutes from us here in Princeton. So.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So
and then they have a car show. Like I said, one of our Z Club members is also a member of the Lakeland Cruisers Car Club, and so we'll go down and participate in their car show. And like you say, Land Between the Lakes is just beautiful. So maybe we need to get up that way again.
Oh, for sure, man. Yeah, let me know, and I'll try to make sure to promote the heck out of that. And man, I'm telling you, if I'm up there, I'm definitely gonna try to get a picture with you, man, and you and your missus and stuff, and check out some of them fine rides. I know that sometimes when I would go up there do investigations, because like I said, I know you know a little bit about my background. Like I said, I think you know that I work for special needs adults, and we advocate for Special Olympics and Epilepsy Foundation and stuff like that, and research. But I'm also a writer and do paranormal investigations and go check out graveyards or this and that, and places that have supposedly hauntings and poltergeists and all that stuff, which ties in really well with growing up on your show. It's like living in a Hammer film. But but no, I mean, there's actually a lot of places up around the LBL that's pretty creepy, because back when they did the land grab there, a lot of people were kind of displaced and had to move, or were just straight forced out, so it was one of those things. It's a beautiful area, but there's kind of a dark history to it, which like a lot of things, there's bittersweet and everything. But yeah, there's some really great areas, because you can go. I don't know if you've been on the lake out in front of the penitentiary before, which I'd worked there for 10 years and got a lot of good ghost stories from there. But sometimes when the water's really low, you can go across and still see where like the roads were and like the foundations of houses and stuff. Yeah, it's crazy.
Supposedly there was a haunted house on my grandfather's farm in Todd County, Kentucky, near Clifty. The actual little area is called Tiwapatee.
Wow, what a name.
And it's kind of between Elkton and Greenville, right on the Todd County, Muhlenberg County line.
Huh.
And my granddad would talk about this house, I guess maybe a sharecropper house, way back down in the hollows. And the deal was, the challenge would be to spend the night. And many times I was tempted, but I couldn't get anybody to go with me, because the story is, if you spend the night there, you will hear rocks, big rocks, rolling across the roof, not down it, but across it.
What?
And I thought, I've got to go do that. And my younger brother couldn't get him area of Kentucky.
Man.
So I never got to experience it, but I keep thinking, if that house is still there,
I started to say,
one day I'm gonna go back.
Buddy, let me know. I'll be glad to tag along. Try to take some voice recordings, see if we can catch some weird EVPs or something. I wonder how that story started, though. About just because, I mean, you would expect to hear something fall and roll down a roof, but rolling across the roof, that's weird.
Yeah. So I have no reason to doubt my grandfather, but he told it for real.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can generally tell. I mean, working and stuff, dealing with people, you learn to kind of vet them a little bit, and if you got somebody that's seeing ghosts behind every blade of grass, seeing Jerry Garcia in their toast, it's probably not the most reliable source of a story. But just working with people, like I said, in the penitentiary, or talking to people like at Western State and places, up around Morganfield, Kentucky and stuff. There's a lot of hauntings up that area too, and I think I've discovered that every little town has something, like you said, like a little hollow or a crybaby bridge, or I think it's what Chicago has, like a Resurrection Mary and things like that. Pretty much everywhere has something. I think it's just human nature. I think it's just there's something in people that they have experiences, and sometimes they can explain it away, and the ones that they can't kind of become legend, and that's just the nature of us.
You've probably maybe have heard of the Bell Witch.
Oh yeah, in Adams, Tennessee, for sure.
Yeah, and one of our members has been trying to get the club to go up there, so we may have to do that.
You know what?
And I'm guessing you're familiar with Ouija board.
The Ouija boards, yeah. Man,
there are a lot of people that are just afraid of them.
Well, I've had use of one of them before, and it kind of creep you out. It could creep me out, but I've got some friends. I've got a friend named Tim Shaw who lives up north, and his family's used them for generations. He's like a spiritualist, and grew up in that tradition, a lot like Dan Aykroyd. I don't know if you were familiar with his past, but his grandfather was the founder of a large paranormal or a spiritualist association back in the early 1900s. He was kind of a Hans Holzer type character, a researcher and a kind of almost a mystic, but very proper, and try to go by a scientific method. Yeah, I mean, you know what? If you guys decide to do something up there at Adams, Tennessee, man, let me know. Especially if you have an event, I'd love to come up there and maybe set up, meet some people.
Sure.
That'd be killer.
Oh, let me tell you why I no longer play with Ouija boards.
Oh, lay it on me.
My younger brother, he's about 2.5 years younger than I am. He and I and our mom were playing with a Ouija board, just kind of messing around. And my brother worked as a geologist in Alaska for some German outfit for many years. But anyway, he'd always had an interest in things geological. So he asked the Ouija board, who dug the canals on Mars? And so it started moving, and it goes to I, and then it goes to D, and it goes back to I, and then it goes back to D. And we just kind of froze. I did? Let that sink in.
Whoa. So
Breaks the hair on my arm stand up just to remember that.
You would think, like with Ouija boards, because I mean, most people go, oh, well, you're going to contact a ghost, or especially in this part of Kentucky, but most people think it's demons, but who's to say it's not a parallel universe or a pan-dimensional creature, which a lot of people say aliens can kind of come and go.
Something going on, because none of the three of us, my brother, myself, my mom, none of us would have thought to come up with an answer like, I did.
Yeah, see, that's creepy. Like I said, we never, like, growing up, we never did a lot of that. Of course, we did, like, the Bloody Mary thing in the mirror. And we had a local cemetery, well, it's still there, Cedar Hill Cemetery, which, as a little kid, I grew up really scared of stuff. And kind of a nervous kid. And but as I started researching about ghosts and things, I wasn't as scared. So a lot of times I would go through and, like, check the different dates. I always want to find the oldest graves in the cemetery. And so I would be going up there, and I would kind of hear like a noise, almost like footsteps behind me. Right? Now sometimes this is middle of the day, sometimes this is 11 o'clock, 12 at night, which I should not have been there, but I'd be creeping up through there and writing down these different stone dates, stuff. I didn't desecrate anything, I would just write down the dates. And I would hear clop, clop, almost like a boot, like a heel down boot, almost like a wooden, like old-timey type boot. And I was like, hey, I'm just visiting, I'm not here to cause any trouble. And everything was cool and never had any trouble, but then one time I heard something go like, and I was like, yep, gone. I was gone. So, I pretty much try to keep my little visits to the daytime, but yeah, I mean, I think there's something there, and I think that, there's been enough people that talk about like near-death experiences, and there's enough people that talk about visitations after family have passed and things like that. Not anything scary, not like zombies or creep show stuff, but just almost like it's okay, or maybe they smell their grandmother's perfume, and they're like 2 hours away and they get a call, well, grandma passed, in her sleep.
I would encourage your listeners, if they're not familiar with her, to read Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She talks about a lot of research she did into afterlife experiences. And clearly there's more going on than we understand. We had a Sunday school teacher that we had a retreat in a little cabin out by a lake somewhere, basically the Sunday school class and him. And we raised a table. You ever raised a table?
I've done the lies a feather stiff as a board thing.
This is, you put your hands out stretched on the edge of the table, and your thumb connects with the person next to you's little finger and so forth. So around one edge of the table, you've got your fingers, thumb and little finger all touching. And then you would ask a question like, go up for one, go two for no. And one of the girls says, will I get married before I'm 20? The table went up and down one time. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I've never seen this before. And it's like a heavy wooden library table.
Yeah, you're not talking about like a card table. You're talking about like a solid, built to stay there. Yeah.
Big, heavy mahogany table that must weigh 80 pounds. And so I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. Let me think a question I wanted to answer. And everybody said, okay. And we were all quiet, had our hands on the table. It goes up and down 6 times. And everybody looks at me and said, what question were you thinking? I said, I was wondering how many knobs are on the stove in the kitchen in the next room. We all go running in there, and there's 6 knobs on the stove.
Oh my God. Yeah. See, now that's extremely interesting. I also want, if you can, after this, send me any linked information to the author as you mentioned. I'd very much like to try to have her on the show, because to me that's just fascinating. And that's what's so great, is that we get to a certain point as society. I think everybody at whatever point wants to think, oh, we are the most technically advanced, or we've got it on lock. We know that, we got the human genome, we've got it all figured out. And I think that, they lose the spiritual side of stuff sometimes, getting so far ahead. I mean, I'm not saying that advancements are not bad, but if you lose your wisdom in the process and you cut off that side that is connected to nature, I mean, I'm not hippy dippy or nothing, but I'm definitely one of these guys. I'm much more comfortable with my shoes off, my feet in the grass, than I am, in the concrete jungle. And that doesn't make me hipper than anybody. That's just how I roll. I'm one of these guys that, I'm more comfortable, like kind of decompressing on the back deck, listening to some wind chimes, listening to the tree frogs, than whatever. And and a lot of people say that's kind of like white noise, which, I mean, if you're familiar with paranormal stuff or EVPs, a lot of times people use white noise to give spirits or whatever entities the ability to manifest communication. And
I get to hear white noise about every couple of months, because as it turns out, I am a regular donor to the American Red Cross, and they keep a white noise machine so that your answers aren't overheard by the person next door that's about to donate.
Right, HIPAA laws and all that. No, yeah, I've noticed they use that. They use something like that here when they come to Princeton, which I think they have one coming up at Walmart before too long. So any local listeners, keep an eye out for that. But yeah, that does make sense. And then who knows? Like I said, anytime you have that steady noise, also I think it loosens your brain up enough. Not how you like my scientific jargon. Loosens your brain. But it lets you kind of open up enough to have experiences, Let me ask you something real quick. Like I said, we've got probably about 3 minutes left for this interview.
Sure.
Is there some events or any websites or any products, books, whatever that you want to mention or get out to the public?
If you've got some listeners that are interested in the poster, I'm going to send you one, but if anybody else wants one, I just ask you to take over the postage. It's about $2, and the poster's free. They just pay shipping or whatever.
What a deal! What a deal! How can he stay in business, folks? He can't. Crazy Bobby's posters, and you want
like
those posters.
The last time I looked in the dungeon, there was one box that still had some posters in it. So
the dungeon, I love it.
It's limited to whoever wants them needs to be first in line, I guess.
That's it. Yeah, don't be late to the funeral, guys. Getting there for the last coffee meals.
I'll be happy to send them to your listeners, and like I said, I will send you one, and you can tell them what it looks like.
Man, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to post that, and like I said, it's going to go right up here. In fact, I think I'm going to have it in front. I'm going to put it right up here to the right of me, man.
Okay.
Say the count is my co-pilot. But
there you go.
but I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to wind this down. So I want to thank you for being on the show, and I want to thank everybody for showing up and listening to me ramble.
Steve, I've enjoyed it so much.
Man, like I said, it was a real pleasure, and like I said, if you'll hang loose till I do my fade out, I will give some last minute information to you, man. And again, God bless you guys. I appreciate all the good stuff you've done, and always a very open person and very kind-hearted person, and it means a lot because you meet some people in this business that different experiences have jaded them, and you've never lost that personal edge. And I've always respected that.
Thank you.
All right. So, folks, as we're fading out and the shadows grow long, I want you guys to check in your closet, check under your beds. You never know. There may be a count rolling around. Check under your kitchen tables. Put your hands on it. You never know. You might get an answer, but maybe it's not the answer that you want. So I want you guys to love yourselves, love each other, and until next time, I want you to stay scared. Goodbye, everybody.